What's up, Crypto Knights? Derrick here with you for another episode of KTF News, and it is June 7th, 2018. All right, we've got some big news stories to go over today. As always, in the cryptocurrency world, there's always something going on. There's always something exciting, always some sort of breaking news to share with you, even though the markets are not terribly exciting at the moment and have not been really for several months now. There is still so much going on. So I want to cover some of the big news stories for you today. But first, before we jump into the news, I do want to remind you that we are just a few days away from the release of the latest issue of the Keys to Freedom newsletter. That comes out every 10th of the month at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's U.S. Pacific Standard Time. So I'm really excited to get that out to you. Myself, Mitch, and Derrick were really stoked about this month's picks and some of the research we've put together with our team to share with you about 3 picks in the cryptocurrency space that we think are going to do incredibly well in the second half of the year as the bull market comes back and we get back into the kind of trading and investing environment that all of us have been waiting patiently for. Now, if you're not a member of Black Ops yet, which is our premium community, go ahead and click the link down below this video. Join us and you will get access to the newsletter every month, as well as access to our private Telegram groups where we share our trade signals and where you can interact with over 1,000 other crypto knights. And it's just a really great community, a place of like-minded people where we all come together. Actually, it's been a really tough year for many of us in the cryptocurrency space. And quite a few members in the Keys to Freedom Black Ops community have come to us and said, you know, if it wasn't for the community, if it wasn't for you guys and what you're doing, I would have given up. I would have lost hope. I would have sold everything at a loss and I would have been done with cryptocurrency. And that's the last thing we want to happen for you. So, you know, join us, get involved. You want to be in a community of like-minded people and you want to have the access to the best information at the right time so that you can take advantage of it. And that's what we pride ourselves on in our community, is providing you with the best research and the best analysis of all of the different opportunities in the space. So definitely join us if you haven't yet. And let's dive into the news for today. So first things first is a pretty big question. This is kind of an ongoing, lingering question in this space, is what's going on with Bitfinex? What's going on with Tether? Is Bitfinex and Tether, are they under some sort of investigation? And it appears that they might be. Of course, recently, the CFTC had sent both Bitfinex and Tether subpoenas, and that would kind of lead you to believe that they were under some sort of investigation. Well, something that just happened today, or I should say actually yesterday, has kind of really kicked the speculation up a few notches about whether they actually are under some sort of investigation. And this is the CFTC denying a Freedom of Information Act request for the Bitfinex and Tether subpoenas. So if you aren't familiar with U.S. law and the way this works, there's something called the Freedom of Information Act, and that allows either journalists or really any member of the public to send a request to government agencies to have access to any kind of subpoenas or other legal documents relating to some sort of case that the public or, you know, a lawyer or an individual thinks that the public should have access to, that the public needs that knowledge. And a lot of times those Freedom of Information Act requests will be granted and that information will be kind of released to the greater public and they'll be able to take a look at it. But in this particular case, the CFTC has denied that request. And in and of itself, that's not really a huge deal, but there's a couple of things we need to look at as far as why they denied it that lead us to kind of make the guess that there may actually be some sort of investigation, legal investigation going on with Bitfinex and Tether in the United States of America right now, specifically with the CFTC as an agency. So basically, in response to the FOIA request dated June 5th, the CFTC wrote that it found thousands of responsive records, all of which are exempt from the FOIA's disclosure requirement, going on to cite a number of exemptions in denying the request, including one commonly applied to law enforcement investigations. So here's the big one right here. It says, This is the response that the CFTC gave to the requester of the FOIA request, which requested anonymity, of course, when speaking with CoinDesk, because this is still an ongoing matter. But the response that the CFTC gave says some records are exempt from disclosure under FOI Exemption 7A 5 USC 552B 7A, because disclosure of that material could reasonably be expected to interfere with the conduct of the Commission's law enforcement activities. Okay, and the letter contained another exemption citation aimed at protecting the confidentiality of sources, noting some records were obtained on the condition that the agency keep the source of the information confidential. Those records are exempt from disclosure under the FOIA exemption. Yeah, 7. There's a lot of numbers there, but that exemption is intended to ensure that confidential sources are not lost because of retaliation against the sources for past disclosures or because of the source's fear of future disclosures. So when you add these two things together, and basically the reason they've given for not releasing this specific information that was requested makes it kind of pretty clear, without them actually coming out and announcing it, that there seems to be some sort of investigation that the CFTC is directly involved with, and they seem to have obtained some sort of information from a confidential source, whether that's a source within Bitfinex or Tether or somebody somehow related to the greater ecosystem of Bitfinex and Tether. It seems that they have some sort of investigation going on, and that they've also received confidential information from a source that they cannot afford to reveal by releasing these documents. Okay, so again, this is all speculation, and this is just again, what the CFTC responded to when they've got this Freedom of Information Act request. So they will not be releasing the Bitfinex and Tether subpoenas at this time. So again, we're kind of left in the dark. There's a lot of speculation continuing to go on with Tether and Bitfinex, and we just really don't know. And it's also something that I want to bring to the forefront, and I want you to know here, just because they're under investigation doesn't mean they're under investigation for breaking a law, or I should say, it doesn't mean that they're going to be prosecuted. The CFTC is the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, and it is their job in the United States of America to oversee all commodities trading. So they, routinely will open investigations or subpoena information from all kinds of companies operating in that space. It doesn't necessarily mean they broke any laws or there's any kind of legal action that is being prepared against them. However, we don't know either way, okay? It seems pretty likely from what's going on now, from the fact that Bitfinex and Tether did receive subpoenas, and from the response to the Freedom of Information Act request to get access to look at those subpoenas, and what they said when they denied those requests. It does look like, just looking at it from an outsider perspective, of course, not having direct access to look at those subpoenas, it appears that there is some sort of law enforcement investigation taking place with Bitfinex and Tether. Now, of course, Tether has long been a source of controversy and uncertainty in the space. Just recently, though, we've kind of heard the news that Tether does have a primary reserve bank in Puerto Rico. Of course, this hasn't been confirmed either. And this is one of the reasons why Tether just kind of continues to be the thorn in the side of the cryptocurrency space, because there's just so much uncertainty. And of course, the market cap of Tether is over $2 billion now. And Tether plays a big role, USDT, Tether plays a big role in day-to-day trading and liquidity amongst the different exchanges. So the big issue is that recently, Friedman LLP, which is the auditing firm that was working with Tether and Bitfinex and was supposed to be auditing them, specifically auditing Tether, they ended the relationship and the auditing never came out. The results of the audit never came out. And so there's a lot of questions about whether Tether actually has all this money in a bank somewhere. BitMEX came out recently and did research, and they said, and they found a big increase in cash deposits in Puerto Rico banks, specifically Noble Bank or Noble Bank. It's a full reserve bank based in Puerto Rico. So that means they have actual dollars backing every dollar that the bank has, right? They don't do any fractional reserve banking. But there is some evidence to suggest that maybe they are Tether's bank, where Tether's keeping their funds. But again, we don't know. And this could be what the CFTC is looking at, okay? It doesn't necessarily mean that Tether is doing anything illegal or fraudulent or anything of the sort, but it does mean that the CFTC is probably looking into just what Tether is doing, okay? And that's reasonable if we look at the fact that they're stating through their business model, and they're offering to the world that they have $1 in a bank backing every single dollar of Tether. Well, of course, we've seen Tether's the amount of Tether, the supply of Tether, absolutely explode over the past 6 months roughly, and now it's at over $2 billion. So that's a lot of money that they should have sitting in a bank account somewhere, and the auditors may be looking into that. So this is not any kind of, I'm not trying to bring any kind of FUD into the market or trying to scare anyone, but there appears to be some sort of investigation going on with both Bitfinex and Tether, and I will definitely keep you up to date with any updates or any kind of new information that comes out relating to this. Now, on a more positive front, we have some big news again from Coinbase. I guess we're just going to be covering Coinbase a lot this week, and Coinbase today announced that they are on track to become an SEC regulated securities trading firm. Okay. And this is a tweet that Coinbase put out earlier today, or actually I should say yesterday, but it says, today we're excited to announce that we're on track to become a US regulated blockchain securities trading venue. We believe this is an important moment, not only for Coinbase, but the entire crypto ecosystem. It says, if approved, Coinbase will be capable of offering blockchain-based securities under the oversight of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. Securing these licenses will bring us a step closer to our goal, which is to be the most trusted way for our customers to buy, sell, and use many different types of crypto assets. This step will also set Coinbase on a path to offer services like crypto securities trading, margin and over-the-counter trading, and new market data projects. So this is what I've been talking about, and let's jump over to this story here that goes along with this. And Coinbase acquires financial services firm to become SEC-regulated broker-dealer. So basically, Coinbase just acquired the securities dealer Keystone Capital Corp, in addition to Venovate Marketplace Inc. and Digital Wealth LLC. So these are brokers in the United States of America. And Coinbase is looking to become a registered broker dealer and, be licensed under the SEC. So what this means is what I've been talking about a lot is that everything in the future is going to be tokenized, okay? All equities, stocks, bonds, real estate, everything will be tokenized, and you'll be able to trade it on token-based platforms, okay? Blockchain, cryptocurrency exchanges. Now, in order for that to happen, at least specifically in America, it's going to need to take place under the SEC regulations, and there's going to need to be regulated securities exchanges based off the way securities laws work in the United States of America. So this is really big news for the greater cryptocurrency and blockchain world. There's, of course, some upsides and also some downsides, but let's start with the upsides because we'll talk about the opposite end of this in the next story that I want to cover today. But the positives of this are, right now, the biggest issue that we have in the cryptocurrency space as far as the market goes is there's not new money coming in. There is a lot of evidence to show that on the OTC markets, there are some institutional investors and some big players moving in, but that's done kind of behind the scenes. Of course, OTC trading doesn't show up on any of the public exchanges. It doesn't show up in the order books. So that trading and exchanging and market making over the counter doesn't necessarily move the market because nobody can really see what's going on. What we need to move the market, to get the kickstart of the market right now and get back to the bulls taking control, is we need new money. Okay, we need fiat, we need new money coming in. Of course, the trading volume, transaction volume on exchanges is way, way, way down from the highs in December and January. And so when we have low trade volume and we don't have new money coming into the markets, it's very hard to get out of the bearish cycle that we've been in. Okay, so things like this are going to make it really, really easy for a lot of money to start flooding the cryptocurrency space, because there are a lot of big players, institutional investors, banks, even central banks. There's a lot of people that are sitting on the sidelines right now wanting to jump in, but they're waiting for a way that they can do it where they can be sure that they're not breaking any regulations in any of the countries that they operate in. And specifically with the United States of America, it is a highly regulated financial market. And when you're dealing with a lot of these ICOs or token sales, token launches, a lot of it is being done in a way that is probably against securities laws in America, which again, we'll talk about in just a minute with our next story here. But this is pretty big news overall. It shows the future of where cryptocurrency and digital assets is going, or where the space is going, at least in America. You're going to see more and more movement towards regulated exchanges that are overseen by the SEC, are overseen by FINRA, and that will allow companies like Coinbase and others that compete in this space to actually tokenize equity ownership of companies. And you'll have basically a future version of Coinbase's exchange where you could actually buy tokenized versions of, let's say, Apple or Facebook or whatever. Every company can tokenize equity ownership of their company, and it can be done in a way that is regulated and legal, and everything is very clear. And when that happens, which I think is going to happen even sooner than we could possibly imagine. I mean, I really think by the end of the year, we're going to see a lot of this stuff start rolling out. And that's why I think that we are going to definitely see new all-time highs this year. We're going to be able to hopefully forget about all the pain that we've experienced. We've at least learned some lessons. Many people have learned lessons during this extended downtrend in the market about taking profits and protecting your possible downside, of course. But it'll all be for the best, because in the long run, stuff like this just goes to show you that what we're talking about here is very real. It's very true. And this is the future. And all of the big players are trying to get involved right now because they know it. Okay. And so that's why Coinbase is making these moves. That's why you've seen Circle making these moves and all that different kind of stuff. And the SEC regulated broker dealer with the tokenized equities and all that is going to be a huge, huge thing in America and in other countries around the world. But is the SEC killing, or, inadvertently, or maybe even intentionally killing innovation in the cryptocurrency space in America? And that is what I want to talk about right now. So the SEC is not changing securities rules to accommodate ICOs, says SEC Chief Jay Clayton. So SEC Chief Jay Clayton has put several regulatory questions to rest by firmly stating in a CNBC interview posted earlier today that the SEC will not be making special allowances either for tokens that represent the value of a project or for the majority of initial coin offerings. Going on to say in the interview that most ICOs are selling securities. Okay, so this is, I think, one of the big things right now that is holding back, like I just said, it's holding back a lot of big money from moving into this space is because of this regulatory uncertainty right now. So the SEC won't update securities framework to give ICOs safe harbor. Clayton clarified that cryptocurrencies which truly act as currencies used for carrying out transactions, such as Bitcoin, will not be SEC regulated. And this is something we've known for a long time. It's already been determined and confirmed in a court case in the United States of America that Bitcoin itself is a commodity, okay? It is not a security, it is a commodity. And being that it acts as a commodity, the SEC has nothing to do with it. Commodities trading is overseen by the CFTC, and it's much more straightforward than SEC regulations. So here's the thing, the issue with this is that the securities laws are very outdated. They don't make a lot of sense if you've ever looked at the Howey test, and it's basically from the 1940s, and it's a law or framework for law that determines how the SEC clarifies whether something is or is not a security. Okay, and the problem with that is it's really old. We didn't even have the internet back then. We didn't even really have communications between most of the world in an easy way. They didn't have fax machines. They didn't have anything. Okay. So the idea of trying to fit blockchain, cryptocurrencies, digital assets, try to fit all of that in this box that was created to address really very, very ancient ideas. Ancient, I know when you say the 1940s, it may not seem ancient, but in technological terms, it is ancient. I mean, if you look at the blockchain space alone, it is developing so rapidly, and there's so many changes coming that even if they do try to put securities or SEC regulations in place, it may be out of date before they even finish crafting them. And that's kind of the issue we're running into. But I think there's a big risk here. As an American that wants to see development, of course, continue in America and for American companies to be successful in this space, there's a huge risk right here with the SEC and what they're doing. And that is that this is decentralized technology, and it is a global market, okay? And American companies, as well as other companies all around the world, are going to move their companies to the jurisdictions that make this the most straightforward and that are the most friendly to cryptocurrencies, to ICOs, to digital assets. And so as America continues to kind of show that this is not going to be, I should not say America, right? I should say the reality is the SEC has a lot of power. This is a very small number of people that have way too much power under the law of the United States of America, and they're going to determine the future of securities regulations as they address ICOs and other token sales and digital currencies and all that in the United States of America. So they're going to determine that. But basically what I see happening is kind of what's already happening, is that a lot of people are fleeing the US and they're just going to do business overseas, which would be unfortunate, but it's also just the nature of the beast, right? And it's also the reality of where we're going. We are going to a more decentralized world where governments start to lose their power, start to lose their control, and the market is going to decide what it wants. And so I really think we're in a tricky place here, or I should say America is in a tricky place. And the reality is right now also that the SEC is incredibly powerful. They are the biggest, not the biggest, but the strongest, most well-respected securities regulation body in the world. Okay, so what the SEC says, what they do, also will have a pretty big influence on many other governments around the world. But I want to say that there really is something called a utility token. And I think the big thing that we have to draw attention to here is that as long as you hold a token sale and there is no actual utility for the token at the time of the sale, which means maybe even the utility, there's going to be a utility down the line, like you can use that token to participate in the network in some way. But if you're buying the token before that's launched, then it pretty clearly under the SEC guidelines would be a security. But we recently had Wyoming come out back in March 7th, and a bill was signed in Wyoming that actually created utilities tokens as a new asset class that is not a security and it's not a commodity. Okay, this is a new asset class, and this bill has been signed into law in the state of Wyoming. And so they're already ahead of the curve. And I want to see the different states continue to do things like this and kind of create and craft the law, because the SEC, they're talking a lot, but they're not doing a whole lot. And we're probably not going to get any kind of clarification on those laws soon. But the big thing about a utility token, there is a requirement that the token must be able to be used on the platform, right? It must have a real utility at the time of being sold. So one thing we might see is that people or blockchain projects are going to have to adapt if they want to sell their tokens to US investors. They need to have a real utility if they don't want to register with the SEC. And that utility needs to be available at the time of the sale of the token. Okay, and you're not going to be able to do these pre-sales the same way, where you maybe raise funds 3 or 4 months in advance of the token actually being delivered, and maybe several months in advance before any kind of platform is actually launched. You're going to need to do some work on your project in advance and at least have a live version of something that token can be used for the second that you sell that token to a potential investor. And this is not legal advice. There's a lot more to it than that. But I do think that the market and entrepreneurs are always ahead of the curve. Entrepreneurs build things, governments break things and slow things down. But the really exciting thing is some of the most brilliant minds, the most dedicated and passionate people in the world are working on decentralization and are working on this kind of technology. So I am very confident that no matter what the governments of the world try to do and how they try to get in the way and slow things down and make entrepreneurs less efficient, they won't succeed. Okay, and they're starting to realize very quickly around the world the real impact of cryptocurrencies and decentralized technology. And we've got a bright future ahead of us. So that's all for the news today. Thanks so much for watching again. Please go ahead and tell me what you think. Leave a comment below. What do you think about Bitfinex and Tether? Do you think Tether has those reserves? Do you think they're actually under some sort of criminal investigation? What about Coinbase? We're talking about Coinbase all the time. I know they've got a lot of fans, a lot of haters. What do you think about securities tokens, about about equities offerings on the blockchain? And finally, do you think the SEC is going to really start coming after all these token projects? Do you think that this is just going to force a lot of American companies to incorporate and move overseas? I already moved overseas because I got really tired of what was going on in America, all the over-regulation, all the constant interference in my life and everybody's life. So anyway, that's a whole nother issue. But leave me a comment, tell me what you think, and please go ahead and leave a thumbs up and definitely subscribe, because we're going to keep having new videos for you daily, and I don't want you to miss any of the videos that we do. You can also click the notifications bell, and that will remind you or notify you every time we put out a new video here at Keys to Freedom. So with that, I bid you adieu and peace. Talk again soon.